Before you can understand this story, you need to catch up by finding these videos and going through them. Advanced English, Simon's Mobile Phone, Chapter 1. Then Chapter 2. Same thing, Chapter 3. And the fourth one, a special phone app. Chapter 4. However, if you don't feel up to that, then just carry on with the latest chapter, Phone from Singapore, Chapter 5. Simon had fallen asleep fairly quickly. This was in spite of his worrying about May, his Singapore cousin. She was 12 years old, a year older than Simon, a year younger than Robert. After a couple of hours of sleep, Simon woke. He reached for his watch on his bedside cabinet. Pressing the light, he found it was 1:10, and he'd been asleep for barely 3 hours. The house was still. He got up and went to the bathroom, taking his phone with him. As he left the bathroom, the street lighting lit up the corridor, and he crept downstairs to the sitting room extension room, a kind of sunroom when the sun is out. More importantly, though, was that any sound made there would be shut off from his parents' bedroom upstairs. He sat on one of the armchairs and searched his diary for May's number. He wasn't sure if May still shared her parents' bedroom. If the phenomenon with his phone worked as it had done with Robert, then he might find himself surrounded by May, her mum, her dad, and her little brother. Simon dialed the Singapore code and the number. The dialed number rang 3 times. He hoped that May's phone was not set on loud ring. "Hello," said May. "Do you—" And she was going to say, "Realize what time it is," but then she actually did say, "Do you realize what time it is?" Only this time she was sitting on the second armchair in her night gear. "Simon, I didn't realize you were coming to Singapore. Why didn't you email me and tell me?" "May," said Simon, "can you possibly speak a little quieter?" She looked at him puzzled, but nodded her head. "Sorry, May, but we are not in Singapore. You are in my house in England." Gulp. May gulped. She looked at his dressing gown and pyjamas, her night gear, and the sitting room that she had only seen once before when she came to England a couple of years back. "I think you should go back to Singapore now," said Simon, and he turned off the phone call. Sure enough, May disappeared. Simon didn't feel that it was so strange anymore. He thought he knew where she had gone, where she was. She was back in Singapore. He wouldn't say all perfectly understandable, but he did feel that since it had worked like that with Robert, then it possibly, would have worked like that with May. He pushed the phone back into his dressing gown pocket. Just as he did so, the light was switched on. His mother stood there in the now blazing light, with a puzzled look on her face. "Simon, what are you doing down here at 1:30 a.m? His mum looked more puzzled than annoyed. He was glad that she had come down and not his father. He would have been much less amused. "I left my diary down here, down the side of this chair." Simon pulled out his diary. "And I wanted it for school tomorrow so that I could write to May in Singapore during my geography lesson," he added. His mum was used to bizarre behaviour from young people. Simon was her second young person after all. "I think it would have been better to collect it in the morning, but I know you have a lot on your mind at 7:30 a.m. and would—" Simon was not really listening to what she was saying, just taking in the tone. She sounded calm and loving as mums were supposed to sound, so he just walked past her, touching her arm gently, and walked up to bed. His mum flicked on his bedroom light, and he climbed into bed and was asleep before his head could touch the pillow, or so it seemed to his mother. At school next day, he met up with Robert and gave him the news about May. "You seem to be taking some great risks with this strange phone of yours," said Robert. "What if she had been sleeping in her mum's room? She is a Chinese Singaporean after all. Don't Chinese children share their parents' rooms?" "I had to test it out," replied Simon. "I just wanted to know whether it worked long distance. Now what I have to do is to wait for May's email and see what she has to say about things. You haven't really said much about your journey from your room to my room." He nudged Robert on the arm. "Singapore is a little further away than my street and your street," said Robert. "What was the journey like? What did you experience? It can't have taken long. You were with me the minute I got through to your phone." Simon was curious. Robert was just about to go into this matter when he noticed two of Simon's classmates paying more attention to their conversation than he wanted. "Simon, let's talk after lunch on the games field." He gestured at the two kids standing by. Simon noted them, nodded, and both he and Robert left for their separate classrooms.